Oh, the perfect Sunday Bay Area sports day was unfortunately not a reality. The San Francisco 49ers, they're going to the NFC Championship game. You flip over to the Warriors, they're dominating most of the game, and then they didn't win. They lost to the Brooklyn Nets again. Kylen Mills and I are going to break down what happened, the why. Something's going on here. There's something amiss, and we're going to try to at least break down the why of it and all that good stuff. So here we go. Locked On Warriors is next.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. That's PrizePicks.com. Use the promo code Locked On. You can follow Kylen Mills on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and probably much more at Kylen Mills. You can follow me, Cyrus Saatsaz, on Twitter at DogSurfRocho. Kylen, all indications were that the Warriors were going to win tonight's game at home against the Brooklyn Nets. They were cruising. They had a 17-point lead in the second quarter, but then slowly that lead got whittled away, chopped at, trimmed at, cut at, and when all is said and done, they lose the Golden State Warriors 120-116. What is your reaction to a very ugly game?
My initial reaction first is just that was a rough sequence to end the game. With 28 seconds left, Kyrie Irving's coming at you. He's an electric player. He's so deadly on the dribble penetration. He gets in the paint, is doubled, yet finds a way to get it out. So I do want to give some credit to Irving for his ability to get it to Royce O'Neal, who knocked down that three-pointer with so much time. Dante DiVincenzo just wasn't able to get there on the closeout. So I feel like you can't necessarily fault the Warriors for that. But then coming back offensively with the chance to tie it up, like the ball ending up in Klay Thompson's hands when he's 4 of 17, has not made a shot from deep. I was just cringing. I was like, oh, please, anybody else shoot this shot. Of course, Klay has been hot recently, but he struggled so much in this game, wasn't able to tie it up. And then, from there, that's all she wrote. So I thought that was really tough. Just a tough finish. And then in general, it's just the theme that we've been talking about, Cyrus. Why have the Warriors struggled so much in third quarters when last season they were the best team with the most positive differential in the NBA in third quarters, which I know we're going to break down in just a minute, to now they just seem to struggle time in and time out after the halftime break. Third and fourth quarters just were both ugly. Third quarter, the Warriors just didn't look like they had the same intensity they played with in the first half. And then they suddenly had an 8-point deficit in the third. And I just, it's just a mystery to me. It's puzzling as to what is going on and what's different from last year to this season.
Yeah, I want to highlight, first of all, Jonathan Kuminga, who had a solid game. They actually gave him minutes. He played 25 minutes, in fact, scored 20 points, was aggressive defensively. I know the stats don't show him grabbing a lot of rebounds. I think he only had 3 for the game, but he was making a difference. He was a positive, a plus 13, in fact, on the plus minus. But what I saw in the third quarter, what really drove me crazy, Kylen, and I don't know if you're agreeing with this or not, is, and this is like the second or third time I've seen Kerr do this. The Warriors have basically like 4 point guard type-ish players on their roster in Steph, Ty Jerome, the Jordan Poole party, and Dante DiVincenzo, right? And of those 4, I don't understand why you need to have 3 of them on the court. You become such a small team when you do that. You're defensively a weak team because you can't block people. Like, that is a diminutive lineup out there. And oftentimes what I saw tonight in that third quarter was a lineup where it was Steph, DiVincenzo, and Ty Jerome. I saw an iteration of that the previous game or 2 games ago, where instead of Steph, it was Jordan Poole. And I saw a lot of that in the third quarter. And I saw that as the lead was being chopped down and whittled away. And meanwhile, in the same game where Kerr is like throwing these 3 point guard lineups out there, which don't scare anyone, he's also DNPing a lot of folks. Like tonight, Anthony Lamb, and this is fascinating, and we need to get into this a little bit because Anthony Lamb was inactive. And the reason for that is he only has 12 eligible games remaining on the season because of the fact that he's a two-way player. So you take Lamb out, who's essentially your power forward that you're relying on for 20 plus minutes a game, and you replace him with Kuminga, which was awesome, but that's it. JaMychal Green, who I thought had a fantastic game in the Cleveland game, started to be redundant, was a DNP. Patrick Baldwin Jr. at 6'10". He gives you size. He's an incredible outside shooter. DNP. Moses Moody, I'm beating a dead horse now. I mean, what's the point? Clearly, Kerr doesn't like him. DNP. My point is, what, in your opinion, like, do you like? I guess is my complaint resonating with you? I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like, something's weird there. Like, it doesn't make sense to me that you're DNPing these players that could be useful. You're leaving 3 point guards out there essentially defensively, which is such a liability. Your thoughts on just all that I just said?
Yeah, we've talked about it at length, and I do agree. I would like to see second-year guard Moses Moody get some more minutes. I think that he needs the minutes and he needs the time to continue to develop. This was a tough one. This was a competitive game, but I do think that the Warriors going with the small ball lineup didn't necessarily do them a service, and that's something we've discussed as Steve Kerr recently made that change, the Warriors turning to the small ball lineup. The tallest player on the floor is Andrew Wiggins at 6'7", and you're going up against Nick Claxton, who's 6'11". He's a player who can bang you up inside. He finished with 24 points and 15 rebounds. And to me, that just speaks to the fact that you kind of brought up the Warriors having so many guards on the floor at one time. That's, I don't think, necessarily helping the Warriors' case. And it just goes along with what we've been saying all season, Cyrus, in that the Warriors need more size and they need more depth when it comes to size. It was great to see Jonathan Kuminga back, and I think that's part of the reason why he was so successful. I don't necessarily mind Kevon Looney coming off the bench. I think that he helped ignite some of the bench scoring, but at the same time, like, there still are combinations just with Looney and Draymond as your two main bigs where the Warriors are very small, and I think it hurts them at times. And to me, Claxton's numbers specifically tonight demonstrate that there is a clear size disadvantage for the Warriors.
Mm-hmm.
How do they counteract that when it comes to playing stronger teams rather in the postseason?
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. And I'm glad you brought up the starting five because this is, I believe, the second game in a row that Kerr's done this, where he basically has this like quote unquote new death lineup of where Jordan Poole essentially substitutes in as a starter for Kevon Looney. And Steve Kerr, I was actually trying to find the clips. I have it queued up. Oh, here it is. Talked about why he thinks Jordan Poole plays better as a starter versus coming off the bench. And I want to play this clip because ultimately, while I understand why you're starting Jordan Poole, the numbers don't lie. He's much better as a starter. It could be a hindrance for this team as a whole, and I'll explain that in a minute as well. But here is Steve Kerr explaining his theory for why Jordan Poole plays better when he starts games.
What does that do for him when he is in the starting lineup, Jordan?
He seems to play better in the starting lineup for whatever reason. I can theorize, there's more space when he's playing with Steph. He's generally going to have a lesser defender on him. I think he makes other people better too in the starting lineup because of the space that and shots that he can create. So it's a good fit, but we have to fight on the glass and defensively because we're pretty small. But it's something that we're excited about doing. And I thought it looked pretty good against Boston. I thought we could have actually gotten even better shots than we did. And that's the challenge as we go, is to understand that we can get great shots playing a smaller lineup like that because of the space and the shooting and the ability to attack closeouts from all 5 spots. So we should be seeking great shots every night.
So now here's the issue with in fact, when we come back, I'll explain what the issue is with the starting Jordan Poole. It showed tonight. It showed in the third quarter. And I don't know if you can run with this all season. And in fact, I don't think they should. And Kylen, I'd love to get your reaction to what I'm about to say. But first, I got to give some love to our sponsor, PrizePicks. Let me get that overlay going. I did not play PrizePicks tonight, and I'm really happy because I know if I did, I would have gotten killed because I always bet on Steph. And Steph had a good, not great night. Steph finished with 26 points. I know that would have been the under, and I always bet the over. But the point of PrizePicks is this: you're betting over-unders for individual accomplishments, and it's not just the NBA. You could have bet on Brock Purdy tonight. I have no idea what his over/under was. It's all across sports. It's all across teams. And it's all about whether or not you think individuals are going to score more or less of a certain amount, have more or less assists, rebounds, you name the stat, and they probably cover it. It is super fun. The withdrawals are fast and easy. You don't have to deal with sketchy wire services. It's legal in California. They don't even consider it gambling here in California. So you feel good about it. I actually feel bad saying that. But regardless, download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com. It's so much fun to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 if you use the promo code Locked On. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. Whatever you put in, they'll match it. Just use the promo code Locked On and sign up for an instant deposit match of up to $100.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen. For your second listen after us, check out Game to Game NBA. Every moment, every top performance, every result, Locked On Game to Game covers every game from across the NBA with local analysis that only Locked On can deliver. Follow Game to Game on Locked On NBA, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. You can follow Kylen Mills on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and probably much more at Kylen Mills. Super easy. So Kylen, here's the reason why I have an issue with Jordan Poole starting. I get it. And they're going to have to figure something out in terms of maintaining his productivity coming off the bench. But the Warriors, if there was anything that they had going for them this season, it was their starting five of Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, Andrew Wiggins, and Kevon Looney. They have by far, provided from a minimum of 20 games played, they have by far the most lethal group of five in terms of differential. Their offensive rating, that five, is 126.7, far and away number one in the NBA. So when you're deciding to start Jordan Poole in place of that, and I'm going to try to find what the rating is with Poole, but it's not the same, nowhere near it. So based on just that knowledge, do you still support Jordan Poole starting? What do you think?
So when I've toyed with the idea of starting Jordan Poole, for me, it was in the discussion of starting him in place of Klay Thompson, not necessarily in the place of him starting for Kevon Looney, because I don't necessarily think it's a bad idea to play with. I just think that the Warriors struggle so much already with size. I just don't know that starting with this small ball lineup is necessarily helping them. Like I said tonight, when they have a matchup against a 6'11" center, and Wiggins is the tallest player on the floor, which I also want to go off into a side tangent about Wiggins.
Please.
Let me know if you want. Do you want to go back to that?
Let's do it now. Do it.
Well, one thing that's really hurt the Warriors recently is the play of forward Andrew Wiggins, because I don't think he's back to his full self after dealing with that adductor strain and illness that kept him out for more than a month. Wiggins hasn't been playing with the same confidence, the same aggression. He hasn't been able to knock down shots. In this game, he went 2 of 9 from the field, 0 of 3 from deep, didn't get to the foul line once. Wiggs is at his best when he's attacking the rim and he's able to draw fouls. He hasn't been doing that. I just think that he's not necessarily conditioned or physically ready to play to the level he was playing at prior. If you notice, all 3 of his triples were short that Wiggins attempted tonight, in addition to some of his twos. A lot of his shots have been short, and to me that says that he needs to do a little bit more strength and conditioning to get back to where he was. I do think that's been hurting the Warriors, and it also brought me into the point because someone just mentioned in the chat, why was Klay Thompson guarding Kyrie Irving? And my immediate thought was,
end.
Yeah, at the end. At the end, exactly. Because Kyrie had that one where he pulled up in the mid-range and Klay just couldn't stay with him. And he also got the foul. Because I don't know. I mean, we've talked about Klay being back to where he was defensively. I still don't think that he's playing better defensively than Andrew Wiggins was at the start of the season. So that's another thing that's kind of occurred to me, is that defensively, I think they're hurting because Wiggins isn't playing the same way he was. And then offensively, he's just not bringing anything right now. And you hope
Mhm.
that when he gets back to full strength and conditioning, because he was out for a while. I mean, and he was dealing with an illness, the adductor strain. So I'm just hoping that his play will increase and that will help the Warriors play increase, you would think.
Yeah. And Kalena Azubuike was actually calling that out as well on the call tonight on the broadcast that he was shocked Kerr was not double teaming Kyrie at the end there. Even if this was the Klay of old, I don't know if anyone can guard Kyrie one-on-one consistently. He's one of the most lethal offensive players this game's ever seen. And yeah, I don't get it. Kerr has just been just completely befuddling me left and right. Yeah, I'm with you. Andrew Wiggins had an off night tonight. And for the people bashing Klay, by the way, look, I don't support, I'm sorry, I don't oppose the idea of him coming off the bench, simply because, again, you're doing it to help the team, right? You're doing it to add some veterans, add some experience, add some lethal shooting to a second unit that routinely struggles, even though they actually did great tonight. So it's not like a criticism of Klay to suggest that. He's also been on fire. He had a horrible game tonight. He finished with 10 points. He was 0 for 7 from 3. He was 4 for 17 from the field. But before tonight, I think over the last 10 or 11 games, he's been averaging nearly 30 points a night. So this is definitely an off night, but he's been doing good until tonight. I don't want to say that he routinely was the issue. But
I agree. And I just bring up the Klay Thompson thing as to like, how do we solve this problem and figure out how to get everyone going at the same time? Not just like, Jordan Poole only playing well when he's with the starters. I just agree. I'm not trying to suggest that as a slight at Klay Thompson by any means, but it's just about what can this team do to figure out the right combinations and rotations to make it work. Because to me, where we're at more than halfway through the season, just teetering around 500, it's not working. It's not working. And today, you mess with the starting lineup. The starting lineup was doing so well. The second unit is struggling. Now all of a sudden the starters struggle. And the second unit is playing much better. And it's like you've got to try to figure out that right recipe that's going to get the whole team to gel and for them to be able to string together consistent wins. I think this was really frustrating, especially because we saw some hope on the road trip where they won a couple big games on the road. They go 3-2, and then they've been playing so well at Chase Center. They had this game in hand. They had that solid lead at halftime, and then you just watched it get whittled away.
yeah, it was incredibly frustrating. Losing at home is just inexcusable, especially to a Brooklyn Nets team that didn't have Durant. I mean, you can't. I mean, if you have to take advantage of these games. It's utterly ridiculous. And I don't know. All I know is that the defense failed them again, especially at the end. I know the offense wasn't particularly lights out. And for the people that are saying like, look, that the starting starting Jordan Poole isn't the problem. All I'm saying is that if there was one thing that was going right with this Warriors team, if there was one thing where they were absolutely excelling at, it was their starting five, right? Like the starting five, again, has the number one rating in the NBA, and it's not even close between them and the second most effective five-man unit on the bench. So by starting Jordan Poole, you are tinkering with that. And I just don't know if that's the right call. At the same time, I understand, the cries for Jordan Poole starting because his numbers coming off the bench are awful. What I'm saying is, why don't you try to fix that? Like instead of giving up on Jordan Poole being an awful player coming off the bench, why don't you actually coach and figure out the why of his struggles and fix that problem so you can have a better player coming off the bench instead of ruining the one thing that you have absolutely going for you, which is a starting five that again is just unbelievably effective. That's my logic. I understand again, if anyone's frustrated that, that I'm saying that Jordan Poole starting, is causing problems, but you are messing with a five-man group that is just killing it, between offense and defense. That starting five of Curry, Thompson, Green, Wiggins, Looney, 126.7 offensive rating, 107.4 defensive rating, which is exemplary as well. And now you're messing with that. And I just don't know if that's a solution. I also don't understand again, like why JaMychal Green was DNP'd. I thought he actually played a great game in Cleveland. Like what, Kylen, can you at least give a shot at the logic for that? Like, can you give an attempt? Take a swing. Why do you think JaMychal Green was DNP'd tonight?
I don't know. I mean, my best guess is trying to rest up some of these guys. I mean, because that's the only thing I could think of is that they know the bigs are going to have to play a lot of minutes down the stretch. I mean, I don't know because I also agree. As much as I've criticized Michael Green, I thought he played well, but I also have seen Kerr do that with other players. And I brought up Moses Moody a week ago and he played well against the Spurs. The next game he plays 5 minutes. So I don't know that I can necessarily make sense of the rotations. Maybe Kerr just felt like Green's skill set didn't work with rotation tonight. I don't know because the Warriors already were going so small, and then it was Ty Jerome who ended up getting increased minutes. So uh, I wish I had the answer to that.
Yeah, me too.
I don't know.
I wish we had an answer, and I feel like I'm doing most of these critiques when you're not on the shows you're not here, Kylen. But I've been taking some issue with the press pool that follows the team, that is there night after night. Like, how do we not know what's going on with James Wiseman? Like, how is that still a mystery right now? This is where I really wish one of us was there asking around more often. We're both just busy with so much other stuff, but like there are certain individuals who their full-time job is just to report on the Warriors. Like, do you know? Did I miss something? Like, do you know why Wiseman's been out for so long? Why a simple ankle injury is just because suddenly made him like not even a member of the team anymore? I don't know what's going on.
I mean, he's still hurt. I believe he has taken part at least partially in practices at this point, but
Oh,
I don't
good. Okay.
know. I don't know when he's expected to be back. There's been no return date. It is still a mystery. I want to add something about Jordan Poole that kind of
Yeah.
struck me while you were going on your rant about Jordan Poole being inserted into the starting lineup to try to ignite him. And it's something that Steve Kerr said in his comments about why Jordan plays so much better with the starters. And one thing he pointed out is that he has more space on the floor when Steph Curry's out there with him, that he also typically will get the worst defender on him because the best defender, or the better at least guard defender, is going to be on Steph Curry. To me, the Warriors just signed Jordan Poole to this massive contract. He shouldn't only be able to score when he's on a weaker defender or when he's on the floor with Steph, who can create more space for him. To me, like, that's why you signed Jordan Poole to the big bucks, because you need him to be that sixth man who can create in the second unit. And with Dante DiVincenzo's skill set, I don't think that Jordan Poole necessarily needs to run the offense. He can also play that two guard, be that shooting guard. He doesn't have to be the playmaker where we sometimes see him doing too much or going over the top and dribbling too much and forcing things. He can be the shooting guard that he also is in the lineup with Steph Curry. But to me, Kerr's whole explanation was that Jordan Poole needs to be on a weaker defender and also needs that extra time and space on the floor that he gets when he's with Steph Curry. And to me, like, isn't that kind of the point of why the Warriors signed him to the big contract? So he would be the guy in the second unit. I don't know. That's just my thought.
By the way, Bruce Morrow writes, no Moody segment yet. It's coming. I'm waving the white flag. I give up. I'm, it's like, who's going to listen to me? Like, Kerr clearly has made his decision. I'm waving a white flag. I don't have anything symbolic to represent that, but yeah, I don't know what's going on. There's nothing else to touch on that subject. I will say this: when we come back, we're going to talk about the Warriors' third quarters, which have not been great this year, and that's usually been a staple of Golden State Warriors' greatness throughout this entire dynasty, even during their horrible years. Oh, there's only two of them, one of them. Even then, they were doing okay. They're not doing okay this year. We're going to talk about why that is. First, we got a new sponsor, Kylen. I even got like a new overlay. Here, FanDuel. We're making it big here at Locked On, folks. FanDuel. I mean, aren't they the ones that have those big those big money commercials with like famous actors and stuff? Or the point is, Locked On's coming strong with FanDuel now as a sponsor. And the NFL playoffs are here. We're really excited about our new sports betting partner for Locked On because they're the #1 sports book in America, and that's FanDuel. And if you're new to FanDuel, that's even better. They have so many great features that make betting on sports fun and easy. New customers, join today to get started with $150 in free bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Just sign up at FanDuel.com/locked on. FanDuel has all your favorite bets, from the money line to point spreads to player props. You can do teasers, halftime bets, live bets. Plus, you can even combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with the same game parlay. And example being this weekend of NFL action, the Niners, I think, were favored by 3.5. They covered that spread. They're going to the NFC Championship, and you can bet on all that stuff and more. It's all on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. So football fans, don't miss out. Place your first $5 bet to get $150 in free bets, win or lose, at FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and now Locked On.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts. One final segment. Kylen Mills is available on social media at Kylen Mills, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Okay, so third quarters. This has been like if there's anything I feel like Dub Nation and people who watch the Warriors could ever rely on, it was that comfy, secure blanket that when all else failed, you could always go, we have those third quarters to save us. But that's not the case this year. And courtesy of teamrankings.com, who compiles NBA team average third quarter differentials, the Warriors this year are 14th at plus 0.2. And to put it in comparison, last year, the year they won their fourth world championship in 8 seasons, they were number one at plus 2.7. Kylen, when we were talking about this before we started the show, in our pre-show prep, you asked, well, what about the years before that? Let's say 2021, when they won 39 and 33. That season, they were fourth in the NBA at plus 1.3. The year before that, when they were literally the worst team in the NBA and ended up with James Wiseman. That season, their third quarter differential was 26th. They weren't even worse. They were 26th at minus 2.1. The point is, though, like almost every other season down the list, 2019, they were tied for the lead at plus 2.6. That was the year that Kevin Durant and Klay Thompson both had season-ending injuries in the postseason. You go to 2018, the second championship with Kevin Durant. Third quarters plus 5.1. If we go all the way back in time to 2015, the first championship, they were plus 2.9. The point is, I feel like something is colossally amiss. And I feel like you agree with this as well, given that they're not coming out of the tunnel at halftime with those same adjustments that routinely used to produce phenomenal results. That's not happening now. Any theories on why, Colin? Because that's really concerning to me.
The third quarter play for the Warriors definitely is concerning. Two factors immediately pop into my mind when it comes to third quarter play. First, what is the locker room culture like? Are the players pumping each other up? Are they coming out with that level of intensity based on those conversations that are happening behind closed doors? Are they firing each other up? Are they bringing the energy to the locker room and bringing it back out that they want to win games and that they want it? Because to me, it looks like the Warriors come out and they don't look like they want it. They don't play with intensity. They don't play with hustle. So what are those conversations going on in the locker room that we don't see, and why is it not there? The second factor to me is, why are the adjustments not happening in regards to the coaching staff making tactical changes? Because that's the other big thing that typically is a focus at halftime. What are the adjustments we need to make to respond to the other team's game plan, which we saw in the first half? And Kerr, his coaching staff, Mike Brown, formerly, who was in charge of the defensive schemes, I bring him up because that is one thing that's changed, which I know we've brought up throughout the season. Are the Warriors missing Mike Brown, their so-called defensive coordinator? And is that part of the reason why their defense has struggled so much? I think it's a fair question to ask. But, why is the staff failing to make the necessary adjustments that are allowing the Warriors to come out and be successful in the third quarter? I think it's a combination. I think it's a combination of things. I think you've got to look at the game planning going on at halftime. Then you've also got to look at the players themselves. Why are they not coming out with the intensity? Because to me, it's partially the energy, the heart, the hustle. And then also poor defense, in some regard does have to also reflect the coaching staff. And, I think it's fair that throughout the season we've brought it up that, the Warriors could still be missing Mike Brown. And maybe that's part of the X factor. I don't know for a fact, but it's just very strange for a team that has historically been so strong in the third quarter that has most of the same personnel as last season. That's what I mentioned to you, Cyrus. I'm like, dude, the Warriors, their first six, and then added Jonathan Kuminga, who's now coming off the bench pretty routinely early on when he's healthy. But, it's like you look at 7 players who are significant contributors last season, the same guys back getting a majority of the minutes. Why are they not playing the same way in the third quarter? So it's a fascinating and definitely concerning anomaly that's going on.
Very concerning. And ultimately, and this is where we talked about this, Kylen, before we started recording as well, that why I come off, and I know I do, as harsh on the two-way guys, and the blame is on the head coaching. I mean, Scott Ostler, by the way, of the San Francisco Chronicle, in a piece recently, revealed a really fascinating tidbit, which is that Jama Malalela, who was promoted to the staff this year following Mike Brown's departure, is reportedly in charge of the rotations, and that it's his task to handle minute distribution, substitutions, at least planning for it. Kerr has the ultimate say, but that does add a new wrinkle in terms of trying to understand what's going on, because he is a very new face in this whole scheme. But again, it's why I'm critical of these two-way guys, because when you look at, again, what's different between last year and this year, they lost 5 veterans, and Dante DiVincenzo is the only other relatively new, fresh face on this team. And, when you look at what the difference is, that's what I see. And you're right. It's harsh criticizing two-way players because they're just that. They're two-way guys, which is why I just don't get it. I don't get why Kerr's playing these two so much. It blows my mind. But the third quarter thing, you're right. It's alarming. I would love to know what's going on in that locker room that stagnated things so much. It's really bizarre to me. Do you want to hear from Steve Kerr, by the way, in terms of he spoke after the game about closing games? Do you want to hear his comments?
Yeah, because that's a big mystery as well. Not just the third quarter, but tonight, the fourth quarter, and being able to close has been a problem for the Warriors this season, which is shocking for a team full of guys who know how to win. They know how to win championships. Why not this season? I would love to hear what Steve Kerr has to say about that.
Well, here's Kerr talking about that.
You guys, this is the third consecutive game that you guys squandered a double-digit lead in the second half. When a team is struggling with that, is that like a mental thing? Is it a lack of focus, or why has it just been difficult for you guys down the stretch to get the job done?
Well, we're 23 and 24 for a reason. We're not good enough yet to close games. We've got to get better, and so we make strides, and it feels like we're getting close, and then we have a lapse. And the games, I've said this many times, the games are nothing but a bunch of possessions stacked together, and you have to execute. And we've made some defensive mistakes in that fourth quarter. We had a decent lead, I think 10, 12-point lead in the fourth, and made some defensive mistakes, and had some really bad offensive possessions, and they got the momentum right back. So we're at this point, we're not good enough to consistently close games, and we've got to keep working towards that.
And it's the working towards that part that blows my mind. It's like, what are you doing to work towards that? Here's another thing that was a revelation tonight. The Warriors sat, they basically listed Anthony Lamb as inactive tonight. And the reasoning for it is because he's only eligible to play 12 more games. Doesn't that tell you that the team does not plan on keeping him? Because if they were going to keep him, they wouldn't worry about that, right? And so if the plan is you're not going to be keeping these two-way guys and they're simply placeholders for the regular season, that kind of reveals to me then that the rotation for the postseason is not going to be like it's been for the other runs, where you're relying on depth, where strength in numbers is not just a cliche adage, where there's actually, it rings true. And most likely you're going to see a team in the postseason that has your typical starting 5, right? And then Jordan Poole or Kevon Looney's your 6th man. Dante DiVincenzo's your 7th man. Jonathan Kuminga's your 8th man. And then that might be it. I maybe JaMychal Green gets some minutes, but then again, he was DNP tonight. We don't even know why. Your thoughts on that? That's realistically what we're looking at here. just talk about adding to the whole nonsensical direction of this team. Yeah, your thoughts on that? I mean, that's crazy. What do you think?
Yeah, sitting Anthony Lamb did surprise me tonight because I was on the same page as you. I thought for sure that the Warriors were looking at, and if not, had already decided on signing Lamb to that final roster spot. They've used him early and often this entire season, which is why he's just 12 games away from hitting that 50-game mark. But he's been such a huge part of the Warriors rotation. And as much as we've criticized him, and I know that you brought up, you think he's part of the big problem with this team, he has had major contributions. He's played well recently, and he just in general appears to be a player that Steve Kerr likes. So it's shocking to me that Kerr would be advocating for signing Lamb because clearly he likes to go to Anthony Lamb and he likes to rely on Anthony Lamb, over some of these young players or other players. So it's very surprising to me that Anthony Lamb would be sat because I agree. Then it would appear that the Warriors don't plan on signing him, which I kind of figured was in the cards by this point, given how early, often, and the volume of minutes he's been getting at this point in the season. What is the long-term game plan? Then that becomes my next question, because as you mentioned, you look at that rotation without Anthony Lamb in it come the postseason, that's a very short rotation, and that concerns me. I would expect something similar to what we saw in the Celtics game where the Warriors just ran their starters really, really heavy and ran them really long minutes. You're talking about 3 of the 5 over 40 minutes and the other 2 at 37, 38. But I just am concerned about, at the age of some of the Warriors players, if that's going to be sustainable even throughout a postseason run. I know they'll get a day or two in between each game, and that's great. But still, like, you want Steph Curry to play 43 minutes a night for an entire postseason. And if that's what this team has to have happen in order to win, then I'm concerned. I'm concerned. And I think you're absolutely right. Last season, the depth and the ability to give him breaks was a huge part of the Warriors' success. So to me, it's like, okay, the only way we can win is by, having the Warriors starters play 40 plus minutes. That's an issue.
It is a huge issue. I am fascinated to see what happens. Believe me. I mean, if there's one thing that is going on with this team, is that it is interesting in the sense that when March, April rolls around, I'm beyond curious to see what's going on. But yeah. And the other part of it is it healthy for a team to have 2 players who are not going to be part of the postseason? Like you have your teammates getting used to them, like they're part of the dynamic. And then that's it. And then when the playoffs start, they're going to be probably traveling with the team, just like how Chioza and Weatherspoon were last year, but they're not going to be playing anymore. This whole thing is just bizarre to me, man. I just wish it made sense. That's all. That's my whole frustration with this whole thing. I wish it made some damn sense. The Warriors, they next play what's their next game? Is it Wednesday against the Grizzlies?
Yeah, I think
is that what's up
the
next?
Next game.
Woo! What do you see about that, Kylen? Because you're not going to be back on with me until Thursday or Friday. I'm actually going to that game as a fan. I am excited about that. It wouldn't surprise me if the Warriors won. I mean, they seem to rise up against the toughest opponents. It also wouldn't surprise me if they got their asses kicked. What do you foresee in that game?
It's a tough game to predict because with the Warriors this season, you just don't know what team you're going to get on any given night. Like you mentioned, the Warriors rising up, they play the Celtics. Suddenly they play great. And then they come in and play against inferior teams and they look like trash. So it's very hard to tell because the Warriors have been so inconsistent this season. You don't know what team you're going to get. You don't know if they're going to play the full 40. Will they play a good half like they did tonight and then just totally crumble in the second half? They're just totally unpredictable. And I think that makes it difficult to anticipate what you're going to see in a game like what the Warriors are going to face with the Grizzlies. I mean, there's the potential they could show up the way they did against the Celtics, and they won the first game of that series, and they really could have and should have and almost had that second game that we just saw happen a week ago. So it's anybody's guess. I'm struggling to make a prediction just because the Warriors' inconsistency is concerning, and it makes it hard. And someone just said, oh my gosh, I said the word trash and Warriors. Yeah, there are times the Warriors have looked like trash. Like, straight up, they're not playing up to their potential or the way they should play. And I just think, we see some games, the potential of what the Warriors are. And then like other games, the defense will be a total letdown. It's just back and forth. And great teams consistently show up. And the Warriors have got to figure out how to make that happen consistently night in, night out.
Yeah. And for anyone who, by the way, who doesn't want to hear criticism, I don't know what you want, because the Warriors right now in the standings are 10th. All right. They're technically tied for 9th. There's a 3-way tie in terms of record for 9th, between the Warriors, the Utah Jazz, and the Oklahoma City Thunder. Yes, folks, the Golden State Warriors own the same record as the Oklahoma City Thunder. This is a team that's aiming to repeat as a world champion. The Phoenix Suns, who just a moment ago were reeling and everyone was ready to write them off, are now back ahead of the Golden State Warriors. Both the Suns and the Timberwolves are a half game ahead of the Warriors. They sit at the 7th seed. The LA Clippers are a game above 500. At the 6th seed, a full game ahead of the Warriors. The Mavericks are a game and a half ahead of the Warriors at the 5th seed. And then the Pelicans and the Kings are your 4 seed and your 3 seed. And the Sacramento Kings currently are 4 games ahead of the Golden State Warriors. If you folks like that, then, more power to you. But I like the Warriors. I love this team. And I think they easily can win a 5th world championship. And that's where my complaints come from. Plain and simple. You're right. This is mediocrity. And what is the definition of insanity? Just doing the same thing over and over and again, expecting a different result. Well, if Steve Kerr wants different results, you got to start mixing this thing up. You got to stop DMPing guys that probably could contribute. I like to see Patrick Baldwin Jr. a little more. I thought JaMychal Green played great in Cleveland. I thought he could have been used tonight. The Moses Moody thing, I'm not going to beat a dead horse. You know how I feel about that. But I don't know. We'll see what happens. They next play again Wednesday. Come say hi to me if you're at the Warriors game. I'm actually going as a fan. I haven't done that in a while, Kylen. When's the last time you went to a game as an actual fan?
Not since. As a fan. Oh, good question. Last season, I actually have a friend whose work has a box, and every so often they rotate who gets tickets and can bring friends. And I got to go in a box seat, and my experience will never be the same. I can never go back as a peasant. I will only go back if I have a box. As a fan, I love going to cover the games.
I love it. Yeah. So I'm going there Wednesday, and we'll see how that goes. Again, to play the Memphis Grizzlies, who have been on fire this year, even though I think they lost to the Suns today. Is that correct? I thought I saw that somewhere. But anyways, Kylen, you've had an amazing run. Enjoy your rest. Recap real quick what your schedule has been like the last 3 games. List all the games that you have been either the play-by-play broadcaster for or the studio host for.
So yeah, I've been doing a little bit of everything. So Chico just said I'm bougie. I did not know I was bougie because I've never had a box experience at an NBA game. I don't think ever. And then once you've done it once where it's food and drinks, all you can eat and drink, it's just hard to go back.
I hear you. And folks, by the way, Kylen is one of the most humble individuals I know. just to let people be aware of that.
I appreciate the conversations. It's funny. But so my work schedule the last couple days, I am all in on basketball season. Thursday, I worked as a sideline reporter on the ESPN Plus broadcast for UC Davis men's basketball. Friday, I called the Cal-Colorado game on Pac-12 Networks. Saturday, I hosted pre-halftime and post-game shows for Pac-12 Networks men's basketball. And then today, I called the Stanford-Colorado game for Pac-12 Network. And then I came home, watched the Warriors, and did this. So I am very tired. I love basketball season, but I am sleeping all day tomorrow.
Enjoy.
I am weird. Okay, so I want to point out one other thing. Okay, so here's my mindset moving forward for the Warriors. Good news, positive. The West is still wide open. The good news is, as much as they're in 10th now, 2 or 3 games can be a huge swing because of how close the standings have been. And just honestly, there hasn't been anyone, or I don't think the top half of the West anyway, has really separated themselves in the same way as we're seeing in the Eastern Conference. So the Warriors could easily get right back in it. And something a lot of people were saying in the chat is the Warriors just need to get a 4 seed. I totally agree. I think if the Warriors can get a 3 seed, a 4 seed, a 5 seed, come the postseason, they'll be just fine. And a lot of people pointed out, I think the Warriors will be fine once the playoffs come around. I mean, these are champions. They know how to turn it on. But the problem is they've got to win in order to get there. They do not want to be in a play-in situation. 7 through 10 is not going to end well for the Warriors. I think it would be better 2 if they're 1 through 4 and they do have some of that home court advantage. I don't think that would hurt either, especially given how much the Warriors have struggled on the road this season. So I'd like to see them jump up in the standings, figure it out down the stretch. And if they can get, like I said, I feel good about a 4 seed, that the Warriors could make a deep run, but they've got to figure it out. You still have to win regular season games. Like, you can't just say, oh, well, the Warriors don't care because this is the regular season, and against inferior opponents, they just don't, bring the same energy, and they're, that's not going to work all season. They're below 500 right now. If there's a time to turn it on, this is it.
Wholeheartedly agree. And for people who are writing the Warriors off, please don't do that. This season there's still a lot of time for the Warriors to right this ship. And if any team's going to do it, it's them. And look, right now, the 3rd seed is still so much in play. I mean, yes, the Warriors are currently 10th in the standings, which is just not good. It's not good, as Jerry Seinfeld would say. It's not good. But they're only 4 games behind the Sacramento Kings for the 3rd seed. Are you going to sit here and tell me the Warriors can't overcome the Sacramento Kings? Is someone really going to tell me that? Because I call BS if you are. I call utter BS. That is not going to happen. So as bad as things are, there's still a lot of freaking time left. So no panic buttons being hit. And here's the part, Kylen, I guess we'll end this, that really frustrates me. I feel like Steve Kerr makes things so much more difficult than they should be. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like just a few switches, just a few changes, and they're cruising. But he's not doing it. So I don't know. Whatever. All right. I'm exhausted. I know you're exhausted. Let's go to bed. That's not awful. You have a great night. I'll have a great night. Folks, thank you so much for joining us. And again, the Warriors play the Grizzlies on Wednesday at home. Then they play the Toronto Raptors on Friday before it's another 3-game road swing. Yeah. So you'll be back at it with me, Thursday or Friday, something like that?
Yep.
We'll figure it out. Sounds good. All right. Are we done? Are we good?
We're good. I just heard a bark from my dogs. That's the signal to cut it off. It means get out of here. Get off that Zoom or whatever you're doing, Mom.
And folks, I'm not stoned for these shows. I want to make it very clear. I do take my responsibility very seriously hosting this show. I get very tired of nights. I'm exhausted today for some reason. I didn't sleep good last night. But I do not partake in libations or whatever you could have fun with. I wait till after the show. I promise you that.
Sure you do. Yeah.
It's a different story if you go to Larry Krueger's show. If I go to Larry Krueger's show, that's a whole different story at that point. I'm off the clock. But yeah, here, keep it straight. Bye, everyone. Thank you. I'm going off the rails later. Peace out. Bye.